Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
You know, it's true, folks. At about 9:30, 10 o'clock, a couple hours ago, I was sitting here looking at everything I had in terms of show prep, and I was going to announce that this may be the first slow and no news day in my recent memory. And then from 10 o'clock to now, everything blew up. And it's another one of these days where it's going to be a disciplined struggle to get it all in. Look at what we got here. We have the Republicans announcing their tax plan. We have the usual Democrat demagoguery in response. A, how do you pay for it? B, it's nothing but a tax cut for the wealthiest Americans. C, it's nothing more than a sop to American corporations. And it's the same old, they got to sit here and refute 30 years of lies all over again. Happy to do it, but there's that. And we have details of the tax plan to share with you and the new brackets and what it means for most Americans. Then we have the Donna Brazile book, the excerpt of a new Donna Brazile book that Politico published. And this is stunning. She literally throws Hillary Clinton, Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz, and Barack Obama, all three under the bus, as having separately and together destroyed the Democrat Party. Obama, Hillary, and Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz. She sets herself up as the grand savior of the Democrat Party. And I asked myself when I was reading the excerpt, which of course I will share with you and my unique thoughts on this as the program unfolds, why is she doing this? And I couldn't help but think back. This woman was caught red-handed cheating for Hillary Clinton by sending her debate questions from CNN during the primaries, where she was trying to help Crazy Bernie. She was trying to help Hillary, against Crazy Bernie. And yet this book and this excerpt makes it look like that her only mission was to save Crazy Bernie and to go in there and find out just how the Democrat primary was rigged. And she did. She found out that the Clintons basically took over the Democrat National Committee a year before the election, that Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz was nothing more than a henchman, that Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz is a lousy manager, that she's a lousy fundraiser, that she's a despicable fundraiser, she's worthless. And we hear of Donna Brazile's pained preparations for the phone call to Crazy Bernie, where she had to admit to him that her investigation had uncovered, yes, in fact, Hillary cheated. Yes, in fact, it was rigged. But she then had to tell Crazy Bernie, try to forget it. We need to unify. We need to come together in order to beat Trump. And nothing about Russia in this excerpt. Did you see anything about Russia in this? There's nothing about Russia in this excerpt. In preparation for the very, 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 very difficult call that she had to make to Crazy Bernie, she lit a candle. The scent of the candle's unspecified. She lit a candle and put on some gospel music. I wonder if it was Thank the Lord Rush Limbaugh's on. Thank the Lord Rush Limbaugh's on the EIB. Dun, 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 dun. I kind of doubt that's what it was. She's listening. Maybe it was the Edwin Hawkins singers. But it's folks, it's just Obama left the DNC $24 million in debt because he was not giving the party money that was donated to it. He was keeping it. And Hillary was doing the same thing. She was getting all these donations for a year before the nomination, before the convention, and she wasn't giving it to the DNC as rules require. And it required a lengthy investigation by Donna Brazile to uncover this. And this is just one excerpt. I mean, this is just one chapter in a forthcoming book. I'm sure there's going to be stuff on Russia in it because the title of the book is called Hacks. Okay, so there's that. We have moderate updates on the terrorist attack in New York City that we will provide. Also, ladies and gentlemen, the United Nations has essentially admitted that Donald Trump was right to pull out of the Paris Accords. Now, they don't say it in those words. The United Nations admits in a totally unrelated to Trump document release that we're so far gone that the Paris Accords would not have mattered. That even if the accords had been adhered to, no difference would be made. That's not true. If the accords had been adhered to, we would have been severely financially punished because the objective of the United Nations is to fleece the United States. So there is that. There's also continuing testimony, which nobody is hearing about, up on Capitol Hill by the lawyers for the tech companies, Google and Facebook. And you know what else in addition to what we learned yesterday that we passed on to you, the Facebook lawyer said that the Russian involvement, the buying of ads on Facebook, that happened after the election, and it was oriented toward damaging Trump. The ads that ran on Facebook happened after the election, and their purpose was to do great damage to Trump after he won. The exact opposite of what people have been told, that Trump colluded with Russia in order to screw Hillary. What we're learning in this Donna Brazil book, we are learning that it wouldn't have mattered who did what. Hillary had guaranteed that she was going to lose this race because of the rotten campaign she ran, and Donna Brazil doesn't hold back on that. Tim Cook, the Apple CEO. Now, you might be saying, oh, no, not Apple. No, wait. This guy issues a tweet after every public event, a terror attack, Trump pulling out of Paris, whatever. This guy issues a tweet, an official statement on his opinion of it all, and it's almost like the guy is preparing to run for president himself. And he did it again yesterday. The iPhone 10 is going to be released tomorrow. So the CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, was on NBC Nightly News being interviewed by Lester Holt. And Lester Holt threw him a softball. You're a big tech company CEO. We got lawyers from Facebook and Google up there testifying. What about all this collusion? What about all these ads that were run on Facebook and Twitter designed to help Trump and hurt Hillary? And Tim Cook said, that's irrelevant. Those ads, they don't affect it. Maybe 1%, maybe 1/10 of 1%. Those ads are irrelevant, Lester. Those ads have nothing to do with it. The real problem, he said, is the fake news that is dividing our country. The fake news that is manipulating people and dividing our country. Now, the second part of that we'll deal with later. The first part here is yet another tech titan saying that the conventional wisdom that Russians were running ads on social media to hurt Hillary and push Trump were worthless, irrelevant, meaningless, and didn't have any impact whatsoever. Then there's additional. Remember all of the protests against Trump after the election. We have learned something else. A story that Twitter hid almost half the tweets about the DNC, the Podesta emails that WikiLeaks posted for the last 2 weeks of the campaign. We have news today that the supposedly Russian ads that were bought on social media, you know what they actually did? They were promoting anti-Trump rallies, such as the giant one right after the election at Union Square, New York City. What we have learned today is that those ads that Russia was running were responsible for the turnout of all of the anti-Trump protests in New York City and elsewhere after the election. Now, I remember after the election, the immediate aftermath. Remember all of those protests everywhere. They were all over New York City, various neighborhoods in New York City, all over San Francisco, all over Chicago. Massive protests. Philadelphia. The drive-bys were all over it. And I remember telling you at the time, folks, this is bought and paid for. This is too coordinated. I suspected George Soros. But this does not seem spontaneous. And then when the travel ban was announced, the first one, and we had massive protests after the travel ban, I suspected the same thing. I said, these are a bunch of bought and paid for protesters sitting around waiting for the go phone call. Well, it turns out that was right. All of these protests were organized on social media. News today that the Russians bought ads, even promoted anti-Trump rallies, such as the giant one right after the election. But there's more. The AP reported today, and I quote, "The hackers who upended the U.S. presidential election had ambitions well beyond Hillary Clinton's campaign, targeting the emails of Ukrainian officers, Russian opposition figures, U.S. defense contractors, and thousands of other interests of the Kremlin." The AP even supplied a list of those people that were hacked, including John Kerry and Colin Powell and Wesley Clark, and even an emissary for the Pope. These hacking and phishing attacks started years ago, and they hit all kinds of people, all of which undermines a carefully crafted narrative that the Russians have been doing all of this meddling just to help defeat Hillary. This has been going on for years, which people have said the Russians have been trying to meddle. Anyway, all of this news is being discovered while people are focused on Mueller, people are focused on the terror attack, people are focused on the attack. Whatever it is, this stuff is not being reported, which is why I'm spending time here at the beginning of the program to lay it all out for you. So as I say, we have a lot to do today, and we'll take a brief time out, and I'll figure out what we're going to start with when we get back. Welcome back. Your guiding light, Rush Limbaugh, executing assigned host duties flawlessly, zero mistakes. When I say these supposedly Russian-bought ads, because we don't know. These ads on social media that created, that organized, that promoted all of these anti-Trump protests after the election. There were ads on social media organizing these protests. We assume they were Russian bought, but we don't know. So it could well be George Soros. It could well be any number of people. The point is that we have learned today via the AP that none of this was genuine. I mean, some of the people that showed up to protest might have literally been angry, but they didn't show up out of self-motivation. It was something that was organized, and it was made to appear generic. It was made to appear as though everybody showed up was individually angry over the outcome of the election. The bottom line, folks, is that I think it's safe to say that a majority of the anti-Trump news that we have all seen since the election, and even before, obviously, but I'm just speaking about the stuff afterwards, I shudder to think how much of it is genuinely fake, how much of it is all part of a campaign that the media is part of, that they are complicit in, and all of this is reported as though it's real news. I keep using this example because it works. The Indiana Religious Protection Freedom Act. Remember the media coverage of that? The universal outrage made to look like people all over this country were fed up and hated Indiana and hated Mike Pence and thought that was the absolute worst. That was manufactured. All that hate, supposedly, and all that energy, anti-sentiment toward Indiana was all ginned up and made up. And a lot of this Trump stuff is the same thing. It's all manufactured and made up. I don't doubt that an element of it is true, but the size of the supposed group of people that are angry and the organization they have, it's all concocted. Just like the Trump rallies during the campaign. Those were bought and paid for. We know that. A guy named Robert Kramer, working for Hillary and the DNC, organized those anti-Trump rallies and hired people, and he was caught on hidden video. Now, it's important to keep reminding people of this because to this day, we're still affected by this. They get away with manufacturing narratives, manufacturing massive displays of public protest, massive displays of people supposedly who hate Trump, don't want Trump, angry with Trump. It's way blown out of proportion to what's real. Here's some evidence to back that up. This is from the Washington Examiner. It's a piece by Paul Bedard. America's long national nightmare over failing to achieve the American dream is over. 3 years after 60% of Americans, 3 years after 60% of Americans said their dream of a great life was unachievable, now 82% believe that their achieved dream can be possible, that they're on their way. Now, that's a massive shift, and I want you to keep in mind something. Keep in mind Trump's approval numbers. Trump's approval numbers are in the 30s. In the midst of all of this robust economic recovery action, Trump's numbers are reported to be in the 30s. I'm telling you right now, I don't believe it. I don't believe Trump's numbers are in the 30s, just like I don't believe the Russians and Trump colluded to steal the election from Hillary. Just like I don't believe half, if not more, of what I see reported in the news day in and day out. So in 2014, 60% of Americans said their dream of a great life was unachievable, but now 82% believe that it's possible. Despite persistently low levels of public satisfaction with the state of the nation, most Americans say they have achieved the American dream or are on the way to achieving it. Only 17% say the American dream is out of reach for their family. What's the difference in the past 3 years? Every day we have polling data. A couple days ago it was on public sentiment about the economy. Public confidence way, way up about the economy. And over here there's a Trump approval number in the high 30s. It doesn't make any sense. And by the way, these numbers cross racial lines. This is a Pew Research Center poll, by the way. Whites are more likely than blacks or Hispanics to say they have achieved the American dream. 41% white, 17% black, 32% Hispanics say they have achieved it. But more blacks and Hispanics than whites say they are on their way to achieving it. 62% of blacks say they're on their way. They think they're going to get there. Hispanics, 51% say they are on their way to achieving the American dream. 42% of whites think so. There are no significant racial or ethnic differences in the shares who say the American dream is out of reach. In other words, the pessimists are pretty much equal across all lines, be it racial, age, gender, whatever demographic you want to go after, it's pretty much equal on the negative side. And yet over here is Trump approval number 35, 37. Something here doesn't add up, folks. We'll get into the tax cut plan next. Okay, welcome back. El Rushmo and the EIB network. And before we start tackling the Republican tax proposal, this actually will not be difficult for me. I understand taxes backwards and forwards, inside out. I know taxes better than these guys writing the law. But we're still going to get into it and break it down for you, tell you what's up, what's out, what's in, what's out, what's up, what's down, what's good, what's bad, why it should pass, why it shouldn't, what have you. All of that coming up. But here's Tim Cook. When I got the soundbite, this is last night nightly news. The Apple CEO. Now, This is not about Apple. It's not about the iPhone. This guy is showing up and tweeting every time there's any kind of a public issue and laying down his opinion on it. And he is a classic civil rights, human rights, extreme radical leftist, okay? Because he thinks that's what America is. So here's Lester Holt talks to him about social media companies. They've been a little late to acknowledge how they were used by those trying to influence the election, the Russians. And that's what this Capitol Hill hearing stuff is all about. And Lester is part of the drive-by media cabal that's totally misinformed and uninformed. He doesn't even know what they're testifying to up there. Facebook and Twitter officials, Google lawyers are all saying the Russian involvement was scant, it was minuscule, and it happened after the election. But old Lester thinks that they're up there providing evidence that Trump and Russia colluded. And it's only a matter of time before Mueller zeroes in on it. Ken Starr, by the way, who the Clintons turned into a sex pervert selling cigarettes to your kids during the Monica Lewinsky investigation, Ken Starr says that Mueller is actually investigating the Clinton campaign now. That's where this investigation is taking him, which I found an interesting sidelight. Anyway, here's Tim Cook talking to Lester Holt about Russian use of social media to elect Trump.
I don't believe the big issue are ads from foreign governments. I believe that's like 0.1% of the issue. The bigger issue is that some of these tools are used to divide people, to manipulate people, to get fake news to people in broad numbers, and so to influence their thinking. And this, to me, is the number 1 through 10 issue.
So what does the Apple CEO care about that for? I mean, I think the guy's got plans beyond the CEO position at Apple, is my point. But now let's look at the substance of what he says here. I don't think these issues, these ads from foreign governments, that's like 1/10 of 1%. The bigger issue is that some of these tools, and I guess he means Twitter and Facebook and so forth, are used to divide people, to manipulate people, to get fake news to people. What's the fake news that's out there right now? Now, Tim Cook doesn't mean this, by the way. The fake news out there is that Trump colluded with Russia. The fake news is that Trump hired prostitutes to urinate on the bed Obama and Michelle slept in while in Moscow. The fake news is that Trump somehow worked with the Russians or any number of other people and cheated Hillary Clinton out of the presidency. That's the fake news. Now, Tim Cook doesn't think that. He thinks the fake news is that's out there from the conservative side of things. But he's right in the sense that fake news is all over social media, and it is being used to manipulate, and it's used to divide, and a lot of it is robots, a lot of it is computer bots. So there is fake news out there. The fake news that's dominating is 100% fake because it's totally wrong. Now, let's go back to the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime and Terrorism hearing on Russian advertising on social media during the election. Facebook Vice President and General Counsel Colin Stretch testified again. Lindsey Graham, South Carolina. In terms of volume, Mr. Stretch, how much volume, meaning how many Russian ads, what kind of saturation here are we talking about, sir?
About approximately 90% of the volume we saw on the ad side appears to be issues-based. Primarily, a much smaller proportion were directed at particular candidates. In terms of the total volume of material on the site, it's a very small percentage. We estimate that the Internet Research Agency content was approximately 0.004% of the content in newsfeed during the time period in question.
You couldn't get a better definition of insignificance. You couldn't better define irrelevant and nothing to see here than that admission. Approximately 0.004, 0.01% of the content in newsfeed was Russian ads. which makes sense. They only spent $100,000 or so buying the ads. You can't win an election with $100,000, no matter where you spend it. Hillary spent $143 million and still lost an election. And now they want us to hear and believe that the Russians spending $100,000 on Twitter or Facebook sent the election in Trump's favor. So this Facebook guy is literally admitting 90% of the volume we saw on the ad side was issues-based, not Trump-based, not Russia-based. Primarily a much smaller proportion directed at particular candidates. But even so, all of it together, 0.01% of all the content that was out there. Fake news. What have they tried to make people believe the past 3 weeks? That the Russians were buying ads all over social media, and that they were doing this to further the election of Donald Trump. And what we've learned is that Russian involvement before and after the election was aimed at Trump. There was no helping Trump. There was no assisting Trump. There was every effort to damage Trump, as in organizing all those post-election protests. So here you have Tim Cook, who may be thinking of running for president. I don't know. That's just my wild guess. I'm not basing that on anything I think is substantive. Just my wild guess. But even if he's not running for president, he weighs in on every one of these issues. And he said, hey, ads are irrelevant. 0.1%. The Facebook guy says even worse. 0.01%. Now just compare that to what you've been told. Compare that to what you've seen reported. And then it only makes common sense to extrapolate that throughout every media story that you see about Trump and people hating him, people not liking him, people opposing him, people objecting to him. This is one of the biggest scams that many of us in our lifetime may have experienced, been privy to, witnessed, seen, been part of. It is relentless, and it is every day, and it has been relentless and every day since the election. And even before that, it was relentless and every day during the campaign. And no matter what the media has done, they haven't stopped Trump. They haven't really damaged him. I don't even believe these poll numbers, approval numbers, have him in the high 30s. It doesn't make sense with other polling data that is calculating the opinions of a majority of Americans on issue by issue by issue. If Trump's approval numbers are in the 30s, then all these other upbeat opinions the American people are expressing don't make any sense. Unless Trump's approval numbers are in the 30s simply because people don't like that he tweets or they don't like his personality. But we've been shown that that doesn't matter because Trump won the election with the same personality then that he has now. So why all of a sudden would Trump's personality start turning people off when it didn't before the election? I really think that we're being scammed to the degree none of us have even contemplated. We've thought that some stories are made up and bogus and biased or what have you. I think we don't have an idea of the grand scope that this has been and continues to be. I got to take a break. Now, I promise we'll come back and we'll start dissecting the Republican tax plan right after this. I've just been asked a question. Do you think Donna Brazile is distancing herself from some anvils that might be falling on Hillary fairly soon? Now, what that's what the question was. It was sent to me by my old good buddy Seton Motley out there. And I'm assuming that he means the Mueller investigation might have some anvils in there that are ready to drop on Hillary, and that Donna Brazile is trying to clear herself out of the landing area of the anvils. She's dumping on Hillary for a reason. She's dumping on, and not just to save herself. She could have saved herself in this stuff without the damage she's doing to Hillary and to Obama. But grab Ken Starr, since I referenced that. Audio soundbite number 13. This was this morning on Fox and Friends. Folks, I'm a little hoarse today, so bear with me. During a discussion about the Mueller investigation, Kilmeade said, look, in the big picture, Mr. Starr, where's this going? These two guys got indicted for stuff they did prior to the campaign. What is Mueller up to?
It's going to Russia. Look, he is charged with finding out about collusion. And what we're now seeing is that, well, there may be some real issues with respect to the Clinton campaign, right? With respect to the Podesta group, the law firm, the possible laundering of money to pay Fusion. This is an extraordinary turn of events. Bob Mueller is an honorable, honest guy. He's Marine, Semper Fi. He's seen combat. He's an American. He's a good guy. He'll go where the facts lead. That I'm confident.
All right. Look, you notice the swamp creatures all vouch for each other. I mean, Starr's a swamp creature. He's part of the establishment. You note he's still there after having been destroyed as a sex pervert and a cigarette salesman from Mars. That's what the Clinton campaign. He's still a member in good standing of the, so he's got to vouch for Mueller. But he did say Mueller follows the evidence. The evidence may be heading right back to the Clinton campaign when it comes to collusion with Russia. Look, there's no question there was collusion between the Clinton campaign and Russia. I mean, it's pretty much been admitted to now. Was she and her campaign paying for the dossier to be written and distributed? So there's no question that, by the way, a bunch of people have called to say that 0.004% is 0.004 of 1%, not 0.004 of 1%, which makes it even worse. That 0.004 of 1% of the total content on Facebook was Russian ads of any kind. 0.004 of 1%. That practically, you can't see that without a telescope. It wouldn't show up without a microscope looking at this on a spreadsheet. You'd probably be an asterisk or not even get its own row. So the news continues to be made, and this stuff, look, these guys are under oath, so they've got to tell the truth, but it is not getting any coverage whatsoever because everything else is masking it and dwarfing it. Now, the Republican tax plan. The Republican leadership gathered in the Capitol today, and they had their big press conference and their rollout of the tax plan. And the highlights of this tax plan are thus. They're going to change the rates. We're going to go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rates to 3 rates, essentially. And it looks like the 39.6 rate that currently exists for the top 1% will stay. And it will remain the top rate. But there is a pretty significant change in the other rates. There's also going to be some modification made in the home mortgage deduction. The corporate rate is and it's not going to be phased in from what I understand. They're going to slash this thing from 35 to 20%. Now, that one bit of news is what is fueling people like Robert Reich and any other Democrat activist you can name. They are all over TV claiming this is a tax cut for the rich. This is a tax cut for the wealthy. This is obscene. This is outrageous. American corporations are already killing people and screwing people and cheating people. They don't need a tax cut. This is clear evidence Republicans don't care about people, blah, blah, blah. The same predictable, formulaic response to tax cuts that the Democrats offer no matter what. The other response that they're offering is, how are we going to pay for this? If we're going to let people keep more of their money, that's going to raise the national debt. I heard Robert Reich actually talk about the national debt for the first time in 25 years today. He's never cared about it until today. And then he started talking about the budget deficit every year. You Republicans keep saying that you're for reducing the deficit and national debt. How are you going to pay for this? I get so sick and tired of the question how you're going to pay for it. And Steve Moore was the pro-tax cut guest that was on the same time, and I think it was on CNN, as Labor Secretary Robert B. Reich. And Moore pretty much, well, yeah, but I'll tell you how we're going to try. We're going to grow the economy. This tax cut's going to grow the economy. That's what's going to happen. And all we need to do is generate another 1% economic growth on top of the 3% we already got. That could mean another $1 trillion to $2 trillion revenue flowing into Washington, more than enough to pay for it. Which, look, strictly as a matter of policy, that'd be great if it happened. Tax cuts can cause economic growth, and they create new taxpayers. But that's not my preferred answer. My preferred answer to how are we going to pay for it, how about the government doing with less for just once in our lifetimes? Where is it written that government cannot get smaller? Where is it written that every year government must spend more? Where is that written? How did this come to be? Why can't the notion of the tax cut being paid for be answered by saying maybe Washington should reduce some of its spending? This offends me like I can't tell you this, how are we going to pay for it question. Because what that means is the money's not really yours. We're just transferring Washington's money to you, but somehow we got to make it up on the other end. So that means it's really not a tax cut when you get right down to it, not in terms of real numbers. Back in just a second. Fastest 3 hours in media. The first one's already in the can. Trump's got another great meeting going on at the White House today. American Education Institution, Broadcom CEO talking about the greatness, the American job creation system. We will be back. Stick with us. Greetings and welcome back. Great to have you with us, my friend. It is the one and only Rush Limbaugh program from the distinguished Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies, Advanced Anti-Media Studies, and Advanced Anti-Leftist Studies. If you want to be on the program, 800-282-2882, and the email address lrushbo@eibnet.us. On the Republican tax plan, again, the corporate tax cut, 35% to 20%, big target. It's a good move, folks. We have the highest corporate tax rate in the world. It is why so many American corporations... And let me just issue a disclaimer up front. I do not hate the corporations. I just want to be very public about the fact I do not hate corporations. I do not think they kill people. I don't think they intend to kill their customers. I don't think they intend to make their customers sick. I don't think their purpose is to provide health care or daycare centers for the community. I have no problem with corporations at all. Sometimes I'll have a beef with particular policies I can complain with the best of them. But as entities, I do not consider them bad. I do not consider them an enemy. I do not consider them a threat. I do not worry about a single thing they do, whether they are globalist, whether they're mom and pop local. It doesn't matter to me. What does matter to me is when American corporations have trillions and trillions of dollars held overseas that they don't bring back and circulate in the U.S. economy because the tax rate is so much higher here than it is around the world. I believe money that American corporations earn selling products would be best circulated in the U.S. economy. And if reducing the corporate tax rate from 35 to 20% will help repatriate that money with a one-time repatriation rate, then so be it. Fine and dandy with me. I have no problem with corporations showing a profit. I have no problem, and I don't suspect corporations of earning a profit. I couldn't care less what they pay their CEOs. Doesn't matter to me. My point here is that I don't come to you with any bias or hatred or prejudice about any of this, but that's what you're going to hear from the left. You're going to hear that this whole tax cut needs to be broomed and shelved because of the corporate tax rate, that it's a sop to the rich, that it's the Republicans continuing to be in bed with corporate America. And they aren't. The Democrat Party's in bed with corporate America. The Democrat Party's in bed with... The one thing about corporate America that I do dislike is crony socialism. I do not like American CEOs sidling up and making relationships with American governments or presidents. You know, I'm not blind as a bat on some of this stuff. I'm just talking about as an entity. The left hates corporations because they exist. And they use that hatred as a means of opposing any public policy that's going to be beneficial to anybody. And so I'm just telling you, I don't have any preconceived bias or prejudice about the entity of corporations, and I support the tax rate reduction 35 to 20%. I think everything gets better when tax rates are cut. I don't look at the tax code as a way to punish people. I don't seek to see it used that way. I realize I'm in the minority, however. What I believe in is the American economy and the American people. And I am for anything that allows them to be rewarded for the fruits of their labors, their hard work, their investments, their ambition. I don't believe the first claim to every dollar should be Washington's for some silly social program or anything else. I blanch and I get viscerally angry when I hear people react to any tax cut proposal start whining and moaning about how we're going to pay for it. Why should government never have to do with less? It seems to me the purpose of a tax cut is to actually reduce the size of government. You take less from the people earning it. And when you take less from the people earning it, you are earning less. You're getting less as government. Fine, static, leave it alone. Let economic growth take care of it. But if they seek to pay for this, that means they're going to go raise taxes somewhere else that they're not going to tell you. They're going to raise fees somewhere else that they're not going to tell you. Or within this tax cut plan, there are going to be some tax increases levied on people who will not complain about it because it won't matter anyway. Now, here are a couple of things in this that I actively support. There are proposals in the Republican plan to severely reduce, and in some cases eliminate, the deduction for state and local taxes. This is going to primarily affect blue states and people who live in blue states. The way this works, the deductions for state and local taxes are it's kind of a courageous move, and it's a very interesting subject. Now, you start talking about taxes, and it's easy to lose people because there's numbers involved, and I think taxes, tax tables, tax codes, tax policy, it's tough to follow even if you're reading about it, much less hearing about it. But the elimination of deducting state and local taxes. You live in New York. You live in California. That is a chunk of change that you can no longer deduct. But more than that, it's going to put a crimp in the state governments of those blue states as well. Now, people in Florida, people in Texas, people in Kentucky, we don't get this tax break because we don't pay state and local taxes, so we don't have a deduction for those anyway. But why should high-taxed states like New York and California get this break? If this deduction didn't exist, and if the people, let's talk about California and New York. You no longer, if this passes, can deduct your state and local taxes from your federal tax return. What that means is people not getting that deduction are going to be paying more in taxes, and the governments in those states are going to be collecting less revenue. That might make it incumbent on people that run these blue states to start cutting taxes rather than relying on federal deductibility in order to help them skate by. There are 24 Republicans in the House from high-tax states who seem to be for the budget and for this tax plan. There are 11 who are not. 7 high-tax states receive more than 50% of the value of the deduction on federal income tax returns for state and local taxes. They are California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, Massachusetts, Maryland, and Connecticut, and they are all Democrat blue states. These states get more than half of the value of the deduction. Eliminating the deduction is going to increase the taxes those residents in those states pay, and it's going to eliminate a bunch of collected revenue that those states are no longer going to get. Why should people around the country be subsidizing rich blue states and big blue state governments? We shouldn't be. You want to live in a high-tax state? Pay the freight. And that's what this is seeking to do. You want to live, or maybe you have no choice to live in a high. But if you're going to elect these kinds of people, if you're going to elect people that do nothing but raise taxes on you and spend you into debt, then bingo, live with it. It sounds awfully cruel, Mr. Limbaugh. No, it's not cruel at all. Dollars and cents. It's real life. It's called consequences. Taxpayers in 7 high-tax states deduct 7.6% of their income in state and local taxes. For taxpayers in other states, the percent of income deducted averages around 4.2%. The epitome of unfairness. Why should all of these big blue Democrat taxpayers get a bigger break because they pay more taxes in those states they live in? They elected people that have done that to them. If you eliminate the state and local tax deduction, just get this. This will put this in perspective for you. As the question is asked, how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? Here's how you pay for it. You eliminate the deduction, federal deduction for state and local taxes. Eliminating the state and local tax deduction would provide roughly, are you ready? $1.3 trillion in new revenue to the federal government every year. Eliminating the state and local tax deduction is going to, of course, raise the taxable income of all of these people that live in these deep blue Democrat states. When they can't deduct their state and local taxes, their taxable income goes up, and the increased taxes they're going to pay, regardless what happens here with the tax tables and the brackets, this is how we're going to pay for it. I love it. Robert B. Reich and all these other clowns are running around. How are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? We're going to make rich blue state Democrats pay for it. That's how, because we're going to eliminate their deduction for state and local taxes. And in the process, their increased taxes that they will combined owe on their federal return equals about $1.3 trillion a year. Why, that could alone wipe out the federal deficit. What's the federal deficit? $666 billion now? Or do they say 667 because nobody wants to say 666? Why, we can eliminate the federal deficit simply by eliminating the deductibility of state and local taxes in 7 deep blue big Democrat states. What's not to like? Mr. Limbaugh, it sounds like you have some class envy. No. Me? Class envy? Hell no. I'm just for people paying their fair share. You creepy leftists. It's about time. We're not raising taxes on the blue states. We're just asking for them to contribute more. That's all. Don't look at it as a tax increase. Just asking for greater contributions from the people who live in blue states. The capital gains rate will not change. It will stay under the Republican plan at 23.8%. The Washington Post says that the Republican tax plan will cap the mortgage interest deduction at $500,000. It's currently capped at $1 million. What does that mean? Well, it means if you buy a house for $1.5 million, you can only deduct a mortgage of a maximum of $1 million. What if you buy a $25 million house? You can only... Well, I know nobody does. I'm just using a number to give you the greatest illustration. Well, okay, you buy a $10 million. I don't know. Buy a $10 million house. The most you can deduct now on a mortgage interest is the interest on the first million. That is going to be capped to $500,000. So if you go out and buy a $2.5 million house, your mortgage interest deduction will be only permissible on the first $500,000. You will not be able to deduct the mortgage interest on the whole loan. Now, $500,000 it would barely buy you a shopping cart in San Francisco and in New York. So, well, it's not just the blue states. I mean, I guarantee you that the realtors and the home builders, they're going to be all over the Podesta group and whoever runs it, getting them trying to lobby Congress on this. And they may even call the Russians and ask them for some help, call a Russian ambassador, whoever they have to lobby, because they're going to look at this as one of the greatest assaults on the home industry ever. If the home mortgage deduction has been one of the biggest selling points, it's a big payment every month. You get to deduct whatever percentage of your monthly payment is the interest on the loan, the mortgage. That's a significant deduction. I've been using that to sell houses for the longest time. Now it's going to be capped at $500,000. Let me run through the rates very quickly. The new rates, I'm not going to bother you with the old rates. That'll just confuse. Trust me when I tell you these are significant improvements for most people until you start factoring in the lack of deductibility for state and local taxes in the 7 deepest blue states in the country. Just as terms of rates, the first rate is a combination. There are 2 rates now, 10 and 15. That'll be combined into one new rate at 12%. And the 12% will be the amount you pay on the first $90,000 you earn. So if you earn $85,000 a year, your tax rate's 12%. But you still get your standard deduction, and you get the child, whatever it is, the child tax credits and stuff. That we're just talking about the rate here. On the first $90,000 you earn, the tax rate's 12%. The next tax bracket is 25%. And that is up to $260,000 a year. So if you make $250,000, you'll be taxed at 12% on the first $90,000 and then 25% on the remaining amount, getting you to $260,000. The next bracket is 35%. There currently is a 35% bracket now. But in the new 35% bracket, all income up to $1 million, between $260,000 and $1 million, will be taxed at 35%. So here's the progression. If you make, let's say, $1 million, let's just use the number. The first $90,000 of it taxed at 12%. The next say 150,000 will be taxed at 25%. And then from 261,000 up to 1 million will be taxed at 35%. These rates replace 35, 25, and replace 35, 33, 28, 25, 15, and 10. The rates now are 12, 25, and 35. The 39.6% rate will remain, and that rate is for all income over $1 million. Now, these numbers are for people married filing jointly. Unmarried individuals, the numbers are a little lower to accommodate the fact that only one person is paying and filing as opposed to two. But it's a grand simplification. It is going to result in people being taxed much less than they are. The rich are still going to get shafted because their rate is not being eliminated. Their rate is not being lowered. And before this is over, it might end up that the rich rate gets raised. Remember, these are just the openers for this. So here again, here's the estate tax, by the way. The proposed estate tax goes to zero in 2024. On estates above $11.2 million per person, 40% until 2024, and then it goes to zero. The death tax, the estate tax, 2024. So the first 90 grand tax at 12%. Then up to 260,000 taxed at 25%. Then up to $1 million taxed at 35%. So the top marginal rate here for the vast majority of Americans will be 35% on income over $260,000 a year. That's pretty much the nutshell here. Okay, we're going to get to the phones here quickly. I just want a couple of things here on the tax cut proposal. And remember, that's what this is. This thing's going to get beat up. It's going to get sliced and diced. It'll probably end up being different than the numbers that we have now. But this proposal repeals, for example, an itemized deduction for medical expenses. It repeals the tax credit for adoption, and it repeals the deduction for student loan interest. Yeah, see, I see some people shaking their head, not digging that, huh? Well, look, everybody's ox is going to get gored if this thing goes through. Somebody's going to be mad about something. There's not a single person here that's going to be doing cartwheels over all of it. Hell, folks, I'm going to be screaming bloody murder, except I won't be. I'm already livid as I can be about this. You don't hear me complaining, do you? And I'm not going to complain. But there's things about this that I don't like. But when you start doing things like this, you're going to have bleepers, you're going to have bleaters, you're going to have screamers, squealers, squawkers all over. That's why I say this is going to change. The mortgage interest deduction, you wait till the home builders and the realtors get hold of that, capping that at $500,000. Some of these members of Congress, a Ways and Means Committee, may need additional armed security just to get out of the building today. The proposal also limits the home mortgage interest deduction, as previously mentioned. For new home purchases, interest would be deductible only on loans up to $500,000, down from $1 million today. Existing loans would be grandfathered if you currently have a mortgage, and then your current deal will not be changed. But if you refinance, I shouldn't laugh. Now, the larger standard, and I should mention there's a much larger standard deduction that everybody gets. And because of that, fewer people will have a tax incentive to make charitable donations. Tax-exempt bonds could no longer be used to build professional sports stadiums. Private universities with assets exceeding $100,000 per student would pay a new 1.4% excise tax on their net investment income. Well, hell's bells, it's about time. How many of these universities have these multi-billion-dollar endowments, and they don't cut tuition? They never think about cutting tuition. Force their student body into assuming all these crazy loans, student loans. And one other interesting little factoid, the Washington Post has come out and has excoriated the Democrats for mischaracterizing this. In their haste, I'm going to read to you from the Washington Post fact checker. In their haste to condemn the GOP tax plan, Democrats have spread far and wide the false claim that families making less than $86,000 on average will see a hefty tax increase. Actually, it's the opposite. So 4 Pinocchios here from that's as many, almost as many as you can get from the Washington Post fact checker. So the Democrats are out there trying to say that the middle class is going to get soaked and the poor are going to see a tax increase. It's just the exact opposite. Okay, to the phones we go. People have been patiently waiting. This is Mike in Columbus, Ohio. Great to have you, sir. How are you?
Hey, Rush.
Hey.
Mega dittos.
Thank you, sir.
I had a little slightly different take on the Donna Brazile issue.
Okay.
She has definitely hurt her name tremendously. The emails and then the stuff with the National Committee. Her book is definitely number one trying to help her out of the hole. She has been a politico for, since the early 80s, working these campaigns from Jesse Jackson on, losing all of them. And the thing is, she still isn't done working yet. She still needs to work, so she needs to get back in there. But how is she doing that? She's going to take Hillary Clinton and make her the foil. And you said that and everything we agree with, but when we talk about Barack Obama, I think she's making him separate from it by showing how Hillary was in charge, period, of all the decisions, all the money, all the activities. Barack was busy doing the people's work. He was busy being president of the United States. He didn't have time for the fundraising, honestly, right? So here you go.
No.
She's setting herself up.
No, he was raising the money and not giving it to the DNC. He was raising the money and keeping it for himself or his community organizers or sending it to the Victory Fund, which Hillary was stealing.
Well, he was doing some raising. Yes, I know he was keeping. I get the fact that it said that, but she is still setting up the Hillary thing, and Barack had nothing to do with it.
Well, look, so I don't disagree with you that she's in a CYA mode here. And I don't disagree with you she's throwing Hillary under the bus to protect herself. Because she's got to figure, what if Mueller does go in the direction of Hillary? What if this guy does start investigating that stuff? The DNC was hacked. The DNC primaries were rigged. This has been announced long before Donna Brazile's book. She's just saying she confirmed it. She's dumping all this off on Hillary now.
Indeed she is, and she's for getting her name back in there. I think she's ready to go back to work for Barack Obama because the work's not done.
Well, what does she want to do for Obama? I mean, what's Obama doing? By the way, have you heard what Michelle Obama said?
No.
Not about this. Michelle Obama is out there just ripping men a new one. And you got to figure she's got to be including her husband in this. Let me find the riff.
Well, that's interesting, but I also know that Donna Brazile would be in the same crew for that.
Same crew for what?
For doing what the other Michelle is doing. She would be in the same team there.
Maybe. You mean dumping Hillary overboard?
Well, dumping Hillary overboard, but ripping men would be also in the future for Donna Brazile.
Well, this is... You seem to want to tie Donna Brazile to all of this. Excuse me. And this Michelle Obama stuff, now that I need to find it, I can't because I'm just overwhelmed here. It's getting more and more difficult each program to keep track of what I've got. But that gets ahead of myself anyway. I'm going to take the occasion of your call to lay out some of this Brazile stuff. Because actually what's happening, our caller has done a good job here of raising some expectations. We haven't talked about the Brazil stuff yet, except as a table setter mentioned in the opening segment of the program. So many of you who haven't yet delved into it maybe, whoa, what are you talking about? That's what I'm going to tell you right now. Donna Brazil has a new book out, and it's called Hacks, Hacks. And the Politico is running an excerpt of one of the chapters. Inside Hillary Clinton's secret takeover of the DNC. When I was asked to run the Democrat Party after the Russians hacked our emails, I stumbled onto a shocking truth about the Clinton campaign, writes Ms. Brazil. Here's how the chapter begins. Before I called Bernie Sanders, I lit a candle in my living room and I put on some gospel music. Thank the Lord, Rush Limbaugh's on. I wanted to center myself for what I knew would be an emotional phone call. I had promised Bernie, when I took the helm of a Democrat National Committee after the convention, that I would get to the bottom of whether Hillary's team had rigged the nomination process as a cache of emails stolen by Russian hackers and posted online had suggested. By the way, we still don't know who hacked them. It's just presumed to be the Russians, like the Russians are presumed to be doing all evil. We don't know who hacked the DNC. It's also presumed the Russians gave all of this stuff to WikiLeaks, but WikiLeaks is saying, no, the Russians didn't. There are, to this day, many people who think that all of this was an inside job at the DNC, that somebody working there leaked all of this stuff about the election being rigged for Hillary. And it is theorized that whoever did this was not in favor of Hillary, didn't like Hillary, may have been more predisposed to crazy Bernie winning, but regardless, didn't like the dishonesty and the trickery and the trickonology that was going on here. Donna Brazil is simply falling prey to conventional wisdom and taking the path of least resistance by chalking it up to the Russians. So again, she says, I had promised Bernie when I took the helm of the DNC after the convention that I would get to the bottom of whether Hillary's team had rigged the nomination process, as a bunch of emails stolen by Russian hackers and posted online had suggested. I'd had my suspicions from the moment I walked in the door of the DNC a month or so earlier based on the leaked emails. But who knew if some of them might have been forged? I needed to have solid proof, and so did Bernie. So Donna Brazil writes, I followed the money. My predecessor, Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz, had not been the most active chair in fundraising at a time when Obama's neglect had left the party in significant debt. So in one sentence, in full self-preservation mode, Donna Brazil tosses Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz on the railroad tracks and Barack Obama to the bottom of Lake Michigan. Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz had not been the most active chair in fundraising, which means she was simply a sloth. She was running around here acting like a star, but she didn't know how to raise money and didn't spend any time at it. At a time when Obama's neglect had left the party in significant debt. As Hillary's campaign gained momentum, she resolved the party's debt with her own campaign donations and then put the party on a starvation diet. The party had become dependent on Hillary's campaign for survival, for which she expected to wield control of its operations. So, the picture she paints here, you got a worthless chairman of the party, Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz, who didn't know how to raise money and didn't. And she was just running around as a toady to Hillary. Obama had neglected the party because he didn't care. By the way, folks, this is true. You may have forgotten, but I don't. All of the stories throughout the second term, about how Obama wasn't doing anything to help the Democrats, that it was all Obama all the time. But he was not. He'd do some fundraisers here and there. But for the most part, he had neglected the party apparatus. In Obama's world, he was the only thing that mattered. He made the party, not the other way around. So he neglected the party. He wasn't fundraising enough for it. Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz didn't know how. The party got in deep debt. Hillary began doing speeches for $250,000 for 20 minutes to banks. Hillary began soliciting donations for this. She's doing fundraisers here, fundraisers, and she paid off the Democrat National Committee debt, which gave her control of the party. And Donna Brazile says this was purposeful. And then, after she gained control of it, she gave the Democrat National Committee a budget of practically nothing to spend so that she would never have to give them very much. It goes on. Stick with us. All right, back to the Donna Brazile story here, the intrigue that she found at the DNC when she went in to take over in a minute, but I've got to get back to the phones. This is Jim in Rockford, Illinois. Thank you for waiting, sir. Hi.
Mega tax slave diddles, Rush.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, I just want to hit on a couple of quick points. It just seems really funny to me when Ken Starr said that this investigation was going to head towards the Hillary campaign because, first off, Comey already did an investigation on Hillary with the email fraud, and that one cleared. She never faced anything with that. The second thing is he pointed the whole investigation towards Mueller to take over against Trump on the Russian collusion. And now we're looking at Mueller investigating Hillary while he was the head of the FBI the whole time that she was selling our country out in Uranium One. I just would bet you dollars to donuts that he's going to have the same results as Comey's investigation on those emails.
Then why would Ken Starr say this, do you think? I tend to agree with you. When I heard Starr say it, I said, "What?" I just can't see Mueller going after Hillary. I see the learned intelligentsia on our side saying, "Hey, if Mueller, who is deeply, deeply devoted to integrity and is a prince of a guy, I mean, no more integrity in Washington than Bob Mueller." So our guys say this, and they say if this investigation takes him to Hillary Clinton's back door, front door, that's where he's going to go. And I just don't believe it because I don't think that's the purpose of this investigation. So why do you think Starr would say this?
You know, Rush, here's the way I look at it. Somehow $145 million landed in the Clinton Foundation during this whole Uranium One sellout, and a lot of people had to sign off on that. And if you actually followed the money, I would not be surprised if some of that landed in Mueller's pockets, and he's taken this investigation over not just to cover Hillary's butt, but his own.
Now, some people have advanced that theory. Here's the way that theory, thanks for the call out there, Jim. The way that theory goes is this, that be it Uranium One or any of that's a big one. I mean, that he's right. $145 million did end up in the Clintons as the brokers of that sale, 20% of American uranium. There's a Canadian guy involved, too. And Mueller was running the FBI during all this. Bill Clinton also got a $500,000 speech fee as part of this Uranium One deal. So the theory goes that the swamp never, ever thought Trump was going to win. They never thought anything other than Hillary was going to be elected. And if that had happened, the Weinstein story wouldn't have broken. The Uranium One story would have never gotten any traction. None of what is problematic for the liberal Democrats right now would ever have surfaced. But Trump won. And more importantly, that put Trump in charge of the DOJ. And they all remember Trump rallies with Trump supporters shouting, "Lock her up, lock her up." And so the theory is that this whole special counsel thing is designed to deflect and cover up what was going on at a time everybody thought Hillary was going to win. So just to reaffirm that, I'm saying it's a theory that's out there. A lot of people are wondering where's... Man, oh man, fastest 3 hours in media. They're just racing by here. And we have actually a much-needed break here at the top. We'll recoup and be back before you know it. All right. The only way I'm going to be able to live with myself today is if I do a fourth hour. I'm just not going to be able to get everything in here, and I want to, at least more than I can. So everybody on the tech side, gear up, because I'm going to do a fourth hour today. We'll take like a minute and a half break of silence at the end of this hour, and it will kick up on RushLimbaugh.com or on the app. And it'll be available on DittoCam if you want to watch it. But I just now decided, so that means Coco and the gang are scrambling up there. They're finding the button that says increase broadband and seeing if when they turn it on, it works. But that is the intention. Greetings and welcome back. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. I have a better name for Donna Brazil's book. The title of her book is Hacks. I think the better title would be What Really Happened. Hillary's book is called What Happened. Donna Brazil's book, What Really Happened. But, I mean, the lead here in this chapter, when I was asked to run the Democrat Party after the Russians hacked our emails, I stumbled onto a shocking truth about the Clinton campaign. I mean, gee whiz. You know, the rats are scurrying. The rats are scurrying all over that party. Did you hear Ed Gillespie, Republican governor candidate, Virginia, his fundraising tripled after that ad ran? And we had a call from a woman who wasn't even going to vote because Gillespie's establishment Republican and she wants no part of establishment Democrat or Republican. After seeing that ad, she's not only going to vote, she's going to start working to get the vote out and trying to help Gillespie. And you know something? That's actually music to my ears. The more people who actively understand who and what the left is in this country today, the better. Now, I'm not going to get into a argument where I want to exempt certain establishment guys from the rigors of what we're trying to do here. But I'm going to tell you this, folks. Getting rid of liberal Democrats is paramount. Defeating them as many places and times as possible is a key requirement. Even if we don't have optimal Republican candidates winning in those races, it still is better than having the liberal Democrat win. In every circumstance, they are that poisonous. It's like Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas was on Fox News last night, and he had an actual, very pointed comment. He was asked about the state of the country, the partisan divide, the basic rancor that exists. He was asked if he was surprised about where the country is right now. He said, no, I'm not surprised. In fact, let me check the sound bites. I think, grab number 19 and number 20. Rather listen to him say this than read the quotes. It was on Laura Ingram's new show on Fox last night. Question. No job is worth what I have been through. No job. Was it worth it for you? Was it worth what you went through?
I think we are called to do certain things. In my youth, I thought I was called to be a priest. And I think there are jobs that perhaps and experiences that you wouldn't choose, but when you're called to do it. Now, think about it a second. When we do Wounded Warrior events or we go up to do wreaths across America, what do you tell the widows, the families of the fallen, that you were too afraid to go through a little bit of uncertainty, a little bit of difficulty to do a job like this when they actually were in harm's way? What do you tell the young man who's a double amputee because of war, that you were afraid to go through that? I don't think anyone would choose to go through unpleasantness, But if it has to be that to do what is right, then so be it.
That is so right on. That is so bingo. I mean, that's bullseye. And not just his comparison to wounded warriors, but anytime you actively choose to do something that creates direct opposition to it or unpleasantness or whatever, you make a judgment on, is it worth it? Are you called to do this, or is this a commitment that you have? And if it is, then you're duty-bound to follow it through. And you are duty-bound to put up with whatever comes your way. Now, in many cases, if the focus area is politics, you have a head start. You know what's coming your way. So that's not an excuse. But that is so right on the money. Nobody chooses it. Nobody wants to be disliked. Nobody wants to be hated. But if to do what's right and to do what you want to do, you have to put up with that, then so be it. Next question. Are you surprised how things are still so rancorous in the country today? Foundational issues, the anthem, all of that.
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, what binds us? What do we all have in common anymore? When I was a kid, even as we had laws that held us apart, there were things that we held dear and that we all had in common. We always talk about e pluribus unum. What's our unum now? We have the pluribus. What's the unum? And I think it's a great country. I think we, for whatever reasons, some people have decided that the Constitution isn't worth defending, that history isn't worth defending, that the culture and the principles aren't worth defending. Certainly, if you're in my position, they have to be worth defending. That's what keeps you going. That's what makes it the endeavor, all of the criticism, the other things. That's what makes it all acceptable, because what you're doing is so important and so critical to the things that matter. So I don't know what it is that we have, we can say instinctively, we have as a country in common.
And again, that's another bullseye and bingo. And one of the ways of illustrating this might be to go back in time to World War II. Back in World War II, there were divisions of people. There were Republicans and Democrats, conservatives, liberals, communists. But there was something that unified. There was something that bound everybody together, and it was patriotism. It was the idea that this country deserved to survive, that this country deserved to win, that this country owed it to the world to survive and triumph. And you come to the post-war period, you start in the 50s, boom, and then you hit the 60s and things start to break down. The things that bind us began to fall apart, starting in the 1960s. And many of the ringleaders of the 60s movement are now in great positions of power in the Democrat Party, the American left, such as on college campus. They're faculty, they're college presidents, they are media people, they are journalists. Some of them are CEOs. But those people have realized their anti-American dreams and now hold positions of power where they are able to continue their anti-American work. And so what binds us together? Name one thing that would bind us together in the midst of crisis. Now, it is true to say that throughout our history, we've had anti-American citizens. We've had people that actively opposed the founding of the country at the time. They actively opposed the Union, 13 colonies. They actively opposed a number of things. But all of that was overcome, and after it was overcome, there remained a number of things that bound everybody together. There was a commonality. It was religion. It was sometimes cultural. Justice Thomas here is right on the money to ask what binds us today. In my lifetime, I think back all the time to the past. When I try to I'll begin to feel or think a certain way. So I'll go back in time. Is this new? I ask myself, is this a new feeling, or is it something you felt before and have forgotten? And what I'm talking about, the degree to which people hate this country, the degree to which so many Americans think this country is the problem in the world. And I can't remember a time in my life where it was this pronounced. And I can't remember a time in my life where blaming America, anti-America, was so popular. It's always been there. But the degree to which it has come to dominate an entire political party, and it didn't happen overnight, it's been creeping up. But nevertheless, Justice Thomas presents and exposes a great question. What binds us? What holds us together? And in fact, I would go further to say that those things that did bind us are those things that are under assault. Those great traditions and the institutions that defined America in terms of our founding and defined America as an exceptional place. Those are the things, if you'll note, that are under assault, the things that bind us together. And now an entire political party has been taken over by people who want to do nothing more than rip us apart, divide and keep dividing. And many of them, the rank and file in the midst of the press, can't even tell you why they're doing it, other than to shout cliches and bromides about America's a slave state, America's racist, America sucks, or what have you. They're just following the trends of leadership. But why the leaders of these groups want to rip this country apart, I think it's directly tied to the ascendancy of domestic communism, putting it bluntly. And so that's where we are. And what is happening now is the election of Trump and the attempt to implement much of his agenda is literally an attempt to reestablish those things as prominent that bind us and that always have. A re-energizing of these traditions and institutions that defined America, that gave America its unique culture and existence. Constitution's under assault constantly. It must constantly be defended, and rather than a document that binds and inspires togetherness and unity and confidence, it's become the target. It's become the focus of evil for those who, for reasons they may not even be able to intellectually explain, hate this country. President Trump, earlier today, had a White House meeting about repatriation of a company that's reopening and moving back to the United States, and the tax plan. And I find it interesting. This is at the White House. It was during an event to announce that Broadcom, which is a semiconductor manufacturer, Broadcom makes, you wouldn't believe the stuff in your iPhone made by Broadcom. And they're moving their global headquarters to the United States. Make America great again. So Trump had a ceremony to recognize this and spoke about the tax reform plan that was unveiled today.
We're working to give the American people a giant tax cut for Christmas. We are giving them a big, beautiful Christmas present in the form of a tremendous tax cut. It will be the biggest cut in the history of our country. It'll also be tax reform, and it'll create jobs. Today, the House Ways and Means Committee unveiled a historic tax reform bill that will create tremendous prosperity for our nation. We will provide a massive tax cut for American families. We will make the tax code simpler and fair.
Now, is this not a little bit interesting? Here's Trump trying to become Santa Claus. That's exactly what the American left and the Democrat Party have positioned themselves as being, government Santa Claus. It's tough to beat Santa Claus, we've said after each Obama presidential campaign, promising this present, this goodie, and that. Here comes Trump, perhaps wresting the issue from them. He also said that this will translate to salary and wage increases.
We will be creating jobs like you have rarely seen in this country. So we never get tired of that pledge because we never tire of returning wealth to our country, jobs to our citizens, and honor to our great American workers. I honor our workers. These are incredible people. They've worked hard. You go back 20 years and essentially they haven't had that salary increase that they should have had. But now you see it, wages are starting to rise.
And here he is with the chairman of Broadcom, the CEO, Hock E. Tan. I'm not sure that's how he pronounces it, but that's how it's spelled. And here's how that went.
In eras past, when the conditions in this country made it harder for companies to compete in global markets, the intellectual property of these leading companies globalized and moved offshore. But I am American, as are nearly all my direct managers, my board members, and over 90% of my shareholders. So today, we are announcing that we are making America home again.
Broadcom coming back. The companies that he was talking about who had left, Bell Labs, Hewlett-Packard, Broadcom, they moved offshore. They globalized, moved offshore. But he's coming back. Broadcom, baseband, modems, any number of semiconductors. And again, you balance this against the continuingly good economic news, economic confidence, and there's Trump's approval number in the high 30s. What's wrong with all of that? You hear those words of Hock E. Tan, the CEO of Broadcom. He said, today we're announcing we're making America home again. I get, folks, I'm just telling you, the left, the media, the Democrats, they cringe. Doesn't this guy know he's not supposed to be doing this? That Trump colluded with the Russians and cheated? Doesn't this guy know this not supposed to be done? They're frustrated as they can be. Trump just told the Republicans, he's at the cabinet room up there having a meeting with the Republican leadership, and he just told them he expects this tax cut on his desk by Thanksgiving. We'll see. When I get back to on the fourth hour, folks, it's not a full hour. It may be, who knows? It just goes until I'm satisfied that until I'm finished. And I arbitrarily determine that. But we'll take phone calls and play any unused audio sound bites that fit. So that's coming up right after the over-the-air program ends in a half hour. Here's Kevin, Elkhart, Indiana. Hello, sir.
Hey, how you doing, Rush?
Just fine. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, about that story about the Russians are responsible for all the Facebook posts and responsible for the hacking. There's a story earlier this year that said people within the United States could do stuff on the Internet, and it would leave a footprint of it came from Russia or China or North Korea. Just a little conspiracy theory going on right there.
No. You know what this is? That's not a conspiracy theory. It was an announcement by the CIA that somebody had hacked, I think it was CIA and or NSA, that somebody had hacked the CIA and they had secured a bunch of CIA hack programs. Hey, look, we hack too, folks. You know, it's been portrayed here that we're minding our own business and we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs and these bad guys are hacking our computers and hacking this and hacking that, hacking poor Hillary, hacking the DNC. We are out there trying to penetrate every bad guy computer network we can find. The CIA has developed hacking programs that leave footprints or fingerprints, if you will, of other people. So we learned that the CIA has a hack program that makes it look like the Russians did it. Or the Chi-Coms. So no, it's not a conspiracy thing. Kevin, it actually happened, and you're wise to remember this because it just opens the door of possibilities of who did hack the DNC servers and their network. Here's Donna in Sayre, Pennsylvania. We head back to the phones. How are you doing?
I'm good, Rush. How are you?
I'm fine and dandy. Thank you.
I'm honored to be on your show. I truly view you as the voice of reason.
Well, I appreciate that very much. It's great to have you out there.
I have a question, and please forgive my ignorance. This Russian dossier, I don't understand what prostitutes urinating on a bed has to do with Russian collusion. I mean, we all know it's fake, but even if it did happen, I don't understand how it's more dossier than just that.
She can't hear me. In 30 years, we haven't been able to fix this. It's not, to a lot of people, Donna, it isn't fake. To a lot of people, it's as real as the NBC Access Hollywood tape. To a lot of people, they think Trump really did it. They think Trump really hired the prostitutes and they had them come over and urinate on the bed that poor Obama and Michelle had slept on. Now, it's not collusion. What they're trying to do with that is to show that Trump is a pig, that Trump is a reprobate, that Trump is pond scum and not fit to be president, that somebody who would hire prostitutes to come take a leak in unison on a bed in a 5-star hotel should not be in the White House.
Okay. And I have a little minor bone to pick with you, if I could.
A minor bone?
Yes.
All right.
On one of your shows, I had just bought an brand new Android phone, and on your show you had mentioned having an Android phone was kind of like it's representative of Democrat, whereas iPhone is representative of Republican. So now I have to buy an iPhone because I cannot carry a phone.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I don't think I've ever said that Android is Republican and iPhone is Democrat. What it is Android is cheap, don't care. iPhone is premium, aspirational, state-of-the-art. Now, to the extent that can be further segregated by Republican and Democrat, that'd be up to you. But I have never, ever described it that way. I've never said Android is a liberal Democrat phone.
Well, now I have to carry an iPhone.
What? You meaning you have to go get an iPhone because of what I said about Android?
Absolutely.
You had an Android. Now I've embarrassed and humiliated you, so now you have to. Well, I'll tell you what. Apple is releasing a new phone tomorrow. The perfect timing for it's the iPhone 10. I don't have any yet. Nobody does. They said they get there early for the line. Yeah, they're going to have some stores that are going to have the phone. Well, your timing couldn't be better. But I'm sorry. Somebody had to tell you that, Donna, because I have never. I don't even think that. I don't even think that Android versus Apple is Republican versus Democrat. Look, there's simply too many iPhones out there. People of all political persuasions, sexual orientation, sexual preferences, cisgender, transgender. It's just the demographic's too widespread to say that the iPhone has a political attachment to it. Anyway, I've taken a quick time out, folks, but we will be right back. Don't go away. A reminder, we have 4th hour coming up, which means we will continue the program on the internet at rushlimbaugh.com, on the Rush Limbaugh app, and the DittoCam, and it goes for as long as I feel like going. Last time went an hour and a half. There aren't any commercial breaks, by the way. We will take phone calls. It's not going to be an hour and a half today. There's just some stuff. I haven't finished the Donna Brazil stuff, and I want to finish that. There's some great sound bites I want to get to. And global warming news that I want to... If I finished today, went home without getting some of this stuff in, I'm telling you, I'd be sitting at home feeling, well, not guilty, but I'd be mad at myself for not getting it all in. I mean, just loads of stuff here. In the meantime, Gaylord, Michigan next. Dennis, welcome, sir, to the EIB network. Hello.
Thanks for taking my call, Rush. First-time caller, long-time listener.
Great to have you here with us.
I just wanted to bring up that the blue state tax cuts in the states, California, New York, they could be good in the long run for future state legislatures and congressional folks that can run on a tax reform package that maybe people listen to now.
How so? How do you mean?
Well, I mean that so they're going to pay more taxes with the tax cut.
Well, let me wait. Hang on. People are just tuning in, may not know what we're talking about. Let me once again set the table. The Republican tax proposal contains a proposal to eliminate the tax deduction for state and local taxes that people pay. For example, if you live in California, you could pay, if you're in the upper bracket out there, your combination of state and local taxes, the average deduction is 7%. That will be taken away. People who live in California will no longer be able to deduct the taxes they pay state and local from their federal return, which will expand their taxable federal income. And it will also mean that those states receive less money. And so you're thinking this presents an opportunity for Republicans. How?
Locally, to run on a tax reform in those states because of the new taxes they're going to be paying. And once they start paying them, they're going to feel it. And maybe we can increase.
Oh, they'll feel it. They'll definitely. And by the way, the most highly taxed and the most populous states where this will affect people are all blue Democrat states. They are New York, California, Illinois, New Jersey. I think Connecticut might be in there. These people are going to end up paying a much higher federal tax bill because they're not going to have the state and local tax deduction, which also means that the states are going to be collecting less money, too. So his point is that this will open the door for Republicans to run for office in blue states promising tax cuts, state tax cuts, local tax cuts, in order to make up the difference. It remains to be seen if this will actually sail through. There's going to be tons of opposition to this. I mean, it's going to be big and beaucoup. So the original proposal today probably is not going to be what the final numbers are on anything, the brackets or the deductions. Some of it will stay the same, but there'll be negotiations and changes. But Trump wants this on his desk by Thanksgiving. That means through the House and the Senate by Thanksgiving. And believe me, there are still enough never-Trump Republicans around, like McCain, who will do anything they can to thwart Trump, not to mention the Democrats. So in addition to the actual proposal itself, it's going to be interesting to me, Mr. Snerdley, to see how the Republicans and Trump sell this. Trump is selling it as Santa Claus. We already heard that today. It'll be interesting to see how the actual Republican House leadership and the Ways and Means Committee Chairman Kevin Brady, how they actually go out there and sell this. All right, hang on. We'll be back in just like a minute and a half, whatever it takes to set things up for our fourth hour.